Okay, another quality is understanding the physical needs of a student, athlete, player, or a team. It's usually specific to a sport. So, for example, a football coach needs to be knowledgeable about the physical needs that a player may pick up during training or in a game. It can also be affected by the age, gender, or medical history that they have. So they might be more prone to injury, because they may have a sort of a physical problem or muscle injury. Um, so therefore, they can put in place different training adaptations to meet their needs. This is quite a good way so they can still take part in physical activity, but also takes consideration of their physical need that they have. Usually, this is done by keeping personal information. A coach needs to keep this updated every so often, or if there's a change that the coach needs to be aware of. For example, a player may not be physically fit, however, they may be coming back from injury, and therefore, if the coach doesn't know that they have an injury, they might just push them straight into a full game, and then the player might get a secondary injury, and then there'll become more issues, and it's because of the coaches not knowing the physical needs of a player or the injuries that can affect a player. Also, physical needs to make sure they have the right equipment. It meets the age or the group size. For example, um, small girls football team, they need a size 3 or 4 ball compared to a grown up girls women's team, which they need a size 5 ball because of the physical needs, and they won't be able to kick the little ones won't be able to kick a massive one because it can be quite demanding and uses quite a lot of muscles. Therefore, need to make sure the coaches as a whole need to make sure they have the correct size, the correct weight, and there's no faulty equipment that can cause an injury. For example, Steve Bailey, when he coaches, Ellie Simmonds needs to make sure training sessions meet her needs rather than everyone else's because he coaches her, and it can be different to a Olympic swimmer compared to a Paralympic swimmer, but also because she may not be fully abled, they will more injuries could be more prone. So that results in them being more prone to injury. So they have to adapt his sessions for her because of the injuries that she could be at risk at. Okay, the analysis of the qualities. Usually, a coach, when it comes to skills, Emil is rather more skill based rather than Manuel because Emil uses skills to make Andy a stronger person and prepare him for big situations or tournaments and make him stronger because he has different skills underneath his belt which he can use or pull out when playing against like a top elite player like Roger Federer. For example, however, but Manuel Pellegrini, he has coaches to do this rather than himself. As a manager, he takes on what's gone wrong and he uses solutions to overcome these problems. He uses the rules and laws to his advantage. For example, the offside rule. He'll use this so they can catch out players from the opposition, and this is a foul for the opposition team. And therefore, this can work in a football match. As a whole, all coaches need to be have considerations for physical needs. For example, Manuel will take on the responsibility of each player as an individual and their sort of physical state. Because if they're playing every single game every week, they're more likely to be prone to injury. So if they have a week off on the bench and only play 10 minutes, it's usually for them so their body can recover and it's not too demanding. If they are coming back from injury, they usually have strength and conditioning, which will help them come back into full training, and so they're not fully rushed in and may cause secondary injuries. So they're pretty safe on that one. But whereas on a non-elite sort of team, they don't really have this because they don't have the team or the staff to do this or apply. Now, characteristics of a coach: goal focusing. The coach wants players to meet targets set. This is usually at the start of a training session. It's usually reinforced during and after the training session. The target can be made individual to a player, or it can be a team target that they need to meet. These can be based in training sessions so they can achieve these targets, and it also can be done over a period of time rather than focusing on for one session, because they may forget this in like 3 weeks or so. Also for an individual player, they can do this outside of training. So for example, it might be to improve their fitness. It's not just going to happen in like one training session a week. It needs to be reinforced like 3 or 4 times in a week to improve fitness. Targets should be reinforced, obviously, like I said, before, during, and after a game or in a training session, so they know it's in their head that they need to achieve these aims and objectives to meet their big target at the end of it, because they're like small little steps to make the target. Coaches and players should also set targets together. This can make a target realistic. So the player may say, "Oh, I want to score 50 goals in a season," but he or she may not be able to do that because it's just not realistic for that type of person. Whereas if they make them together, they compare what they think of the player's performance, and then they can reflect on their strengths and weaknesses, and they have something to talk about. And in the end, they can make a few targets that the player can try to achieve, and this can be reflected at a later date and see if they have met them. If not, then they can just see why, and then they can make more of a realistic target. For example, this Emma Gibbons, the PE teacher, at the start of her lessons, she would explain the aims and objectives, what we're learning in the PE lesson. Then she would say how many types of people, like the types of people who may achieve this. For example, all, most, and few. And this is usually reinforced during a session when we come in after doing the skills and techniques. Then we apply this into the game situation, and then she goes over the aims and objectives at the end to see our strengths and weaknesses, and then she may use this at a later date for another of her PE sessions. Characteristics and commitment. For a coach to be committed is very important, I think, especially for players in a team, because you want someone who's going to be there for a long period of time, that's going to help you out and what's the best for you and a team. It helps the players have positive reinforcement if they're always there, always on time, punctual, and they just have a positive mindset. And it also improves self-esteem because it feels like they believe that you can do something, whereas you might think, "Oh, I can't do that," but they'll say, "Yeah, you can do that." Especially if someone puts time and effort into a training session, that'll help you improve as an individual, especially in a non-elite team. And once you do that, you start to get power and respect from the players that you teach, but also you can give them respect as well and give them the power, because it's a bit of leadership skills. For example, Alex Ferguson, he was with Man United for 25 years. He went through thick and thin, and he gained success because he stayed with the club and he tried to find solutions for their problems, and therefore he gained a lot of respect from most of all sports, really, because he's such a good coach, and he stayed with the club for 25 years, which is quite a long time, and not many people have the patience to stay with a team for that long. Another characteristic is patience. I find that if a coach supports the team, players, athletes, and students, they're more likely to become a better player, individual, or a team. However, it can be quite frustrating if a player can't perform a skill, and the rest of the group has developed on to make it a bit harder, or they've progressed. Therefore, you might have to simplify something for the individual who is struggling. So you might need to make the skill simpler, maybe spend a little bit more time with them and help them. Whereas you could leave the other players to sort of get on with their progression, and then sort of flip between the two to make sure everyone's understanding what's going on. If players progress quickly, or the coach pushes the players quickly through things, they're more likely to miss out on important areas of a skill or a drill, and it won't reflect on sort of how it all sort of works. And therefore, at a later date, you're going to have to come back to it because they might not have understood it at that time when they did it, and then because the coach sort of rattled on with it, it sort of later on at a later date when it needs to be used into a situation, they'll have to go back to it because the coach didn't explain it well. So he needs to be patient to make sure everybody understands before he can move on. For example, Sam and Emma, they're both teachers who teach a range of abilities. This results in progression and understanding for each individual to be different. So therefore, they might need to spend more time explaining the drills, the skills, and why these occur in different situations. This can reflect on different sessions, so they might need to spend more time on, for example, passing, or they might need to spend more time on shooting and the techniques used to make it sort of successful for the players. Analysis of the characteristics. All the characteristics should be very positive. They are usually very positive when coaching. However, some can be bad if they are used at the wrong time, or if it's used too often, it can not be necessary. For example, if someone did something wrong and the coach was like, unlucky, well, it's not really lucky, you just didn't really do it right, so you just need more practice. For all the coaches, they need to be confident to be a successful coach. So it has the impression that they're going to improve the player, and from that they're going to gain respect, and the players are going to want to be coached by them. And it also gives the coach a professional outlook on them, and they have the power of the group. And therefore, from that, they can lead on to progression, and it sort of offers, and like they'll be able to adapt sessions, and they'll be confident about doing this rather than shying away from it. Commitment is also very important because they make sure players work hard and achieve potential. If not, then the success rate will decrease. And this is sort of usually related to non-elite levels, because if you have a volunteer coach and he doesn't turn up on time, he doesn't come to all the matches, then the non-elites are not going to feel motivated or supported by the coach. And this can be quite sort of reason, like sort of why am I even playing football, for example. This leads on to patience. When you're as a coach, and you need to be patient because it allows people to progress at their own pace. This is good. However, it sometimes needs to be reinforced a little bit more, so people will progress, and it will find it a bit challenging because they're sort of being pressed to do it. But however, coaches respect individuals who may not understand, so they can just go to one side and help them progress and become a lot better at a skill drill that they may not be confident at. However, if they don't have the patience, there's not going to be development in the team, and it's not going to meet the needs of the group. So the coach might get angry about things and may just go off on a sort of anger tantrum because players may not understand something. So if you give them time, give them like extra time to go out and try a skill, then they're more likely to succeed. So all of the characteristics are very important, and there's a lot more characteristics that can be undertaken by a coach, but I think these are the most three important characteristics, and they're probably just all as important as each other.